Hello everyone, this is Mr. Everett bringing you another mini lesson having to do with our poetry unit. And I'm going to start with an experiment. Alright, wherever you are listening to this, I want you to take 20, 30 seconds, maybe a minute, and I want you to lie down. Yeah, I'm serious, unless you're going to be lying somewhere where they think you're a corpse, just go lie down. And I want you to look up. When you do, I want you to see what you notice. What do you see? Now, if you're lying down on your parents' dining table or something like that and they scoot you off there, alright, it's fair. But other than that, take a moment, lie down, look up. When you return, we'll talk. See you in a moment. Alright, so what'd you notice? I'd guess that a lot of you haven't done this for a long time. But if you have, awesome. I know I did, and when I did, things looked a little different. Certainly different from what I'd seen before. How many of you have ever done this, say in your bedroom? You're looking at your bedroom, you lie down, you look up. Maybe after a certain amount of time, it almost makes it seem as though everything's upside down. Kind of like you're on the ceiling, something like that, and you're looking at everything else. And in fact, I want you to think how many times you might have done this when you were a kid. If you want to try something even more crazy, again, without getting me fired or having your parents question your mental health, try just getting on your hands and knees. Crawl around your bedroom or your house just for a little bit and look at how different everything looks. All the things that you'd normally see the top of that now you can't. All the things that you'd normally never glance at that you go, huh, so that's what that looks like. When you do, in many ways, you're doing exactly what I've been trying to hammer home for these last few weeks. You're seeing things from a new perspective. Again, many of you might be asking yourself, Everett, why poetry? Why now? There's a billion other things to do. We could be studying anything. And again, I want you to simply consider this. Poetry is perspective. It offers you a lens. It offers you something where you can see the world differently. And each time you do, you grow, both in English, but also as a person. So this week, we're going to start with the original poem. You are going to write a poem, but the good news is you've already done most of the work with your photo poem interview. And if the first thing you're thinking to yourself is, Everett, I have nothing to offer. My hands are emptied. And no, seriously, if that was you, just no, we're gonna get you rethinking on this. Poetry is not made entirely for this idea of the swiftness and eternity of life and the sadness of death. No, most poetry is simply made up of a small noticing, a moment, anything that has the reader look at that and say something like, oh, huh, or yeah, me too. Speaking of two, I want to give you two examples of this because I want you to see that when you write, it doesn't have to be this incredible, crazy craftsmanship that uses everything to, oh my gosh, it's good. No. It's a moment. It's a little bit about your life, or in some cases, someone else that you're writing about, that you're just going to craft into something beyond just a simple paragraph. Alright, I'm going to analyze two poems. We'll hit the jump in just a moment. And we're back. So, here's a poem. Twice I Walked with Dinosaurs by Cameron Diagonal. Notice it was only written 3 years ago, so this isn't some ancient thing about life, sadness, and all this. This is someone who's literally just talking about two things that she saw. Let's read. One summer, we found a dead baby shark washed up on the beach, cut it open with a dinner knife from the house, and performed an outdoor autopsy. As we marveled at its miniature anatomy, reveled in the smallness of each little organs, seagulls circled overhead. The ocean was quiet, barely making waves. It kept vigil for its tiny causality. The spring prior, an alligator wandered onto the beach during my uncle's second wedding. It was far enough away to merit an absence of fear, but nobody took photos or said a word. We just stared as it settled itself in the surf, hoping to be cleansed. Now, again, there could be a little more depth to this. There is some things that the author might be trying to say, but primarily notice the poet is just relating two small things that happened in her life. Yours does not have to be hugely, crazily different beyond that. You are simply giving us something to think on. Let's jump to a second one here. This one, written 4 years ago by Terry Ellen Cross Davis, is called Akron at Night. It's a little sadder, but I think you'll be fascinated by again how simple it is. A few months after Dad left, the divorce still pending, my mother drives home on an unspectacular Cleveland night, looks at me, and says, "Let's drive to Akron." We're cuddled in her tiny black Chevy Spectrum, a stick she taught herself to drive because it was the cheapest on the lot. Prince's Batman soundtrack plays in the cassette player. Akron. Neither of us had never been there. It was just the place you drove past to get home. Prince croons, Vicky waiting. We sing along to the opening night, probing the wound of the road, hugging tight to Highway 77. When we reach Akron, its lit spires bathe us in a strange orange glow. The bricked sidewalks spill out in quiet perfection. Our satisfaction surrounds us, hanging thick in the closeness of the car. The cassette clicks, flips, and side B begins. By the way, if you don't know what a cassette is, it's basically just way older even than CDs. It was something that you could only play through, and then eventually it would click and play in reverse, and the side B would happen. Okay, now notice, it's a serious topic. This person is talking about divorce, which is quite sad, but they're not desperately running into all these different metaphors and similes, oh my gosh, and I couldn't believe, which are good. But all they're doing is giving you a moment. Her and her mother driving. They drive to Akron. Notice there's tons and tons of small details. The cassette, you have Prince singing in the background, you've got the light. All of these details make it seem as though you're practically there. By the way, really cool small thing about structure. If you want to tell how she feels about this in terms of tone, notice how the structure is like super, let's call it organized. Everything's together, right? Even if it has to break up the lines. Honestly, it feels calm. Now, I'm not expecting you to set up certain tricks like this to go, ooh, I'm going to set up the tone just right. But again, poetry. You don't have to have a spectacular, amazing thing to write about or anything like that. You're just giving us a glimpse into your life. And when you do, even if you think it's the most unspectacular thing ever, you'll still have something to offer us. So I'm going to get into the actual assignment now. So let's get ready for that here. Open it up. Okay, here's your original poem. Essentially, what I'd like is for you to have about 15 or more lines. Trust me, it'll be super easy. I'd like you to title it. Again, it won't be tough at all. Multiple stanzas, the equivalent of what you'd call a little paragraph. I'll show you what I mean shortly. If you can, unless you have a specific reason, go with different line lengths so it's not all the exact same. I would like your poem to connect to your photo in any way, shape. You can, of course, use your imagination from, but I would like it to be primarily based on that. And for the most part, how you'll begin this is you're going to use the responses that you've written in your interview, maybe even the phrases that you've highlighted, and you will turn this into a poem. Let me just show you how right now. Okay? On the left here is the paragraph that I wrote about me sitting on the pumpkin farm, okay, with the cat there. Truly, for your original poem, about all you need to do, if your paragraph makes enough sense to you, Or if you want to just take a bunch of the phrases that you have, copy and paste them in, on the right, it's almost the exact same. All I did was cut it to be interesting. Notice, each of these is a stanza. It means it's kind of its own thought grouped together. And notice, you will get 15 lines oh so easily. Halloween, right here, yeah, that's a line. This, that's a line. So you'll get there just fine. And again, if you're saying, Everett, oh, what I have is so boring, there's nothing particularly interesting, again, I'll remind you, it doesn't need to be. Even if your poem sounds as, say, stupid to you as sitting down as a 3-year-old and eating a bowl of Cheerios, there are other people who, having read that, would go, oh yeah, gosh, I remember what it's like to live back then, when things were so simple. Trust me, you have something to write about. For your title too, notice, it doesn't need to be some crazy, symbolic, amazing thing or other. I just titled mine what it was. It was an autumn afternoon. So, for this week, you're going to write your original poem. It'll be based on your photo poem interview from last week. And all the instructions should be here. I'm including another link from the incredibly talented Ms. Dykstra here, where she explains some of the ways where you might turn a basic narrative or a paragraph into a poem as well. So you have a lot to work with. But again, don't agonize, don't feel stressed about it being perfect or anything like that. The goal is just to write, to create. Alright, everyone, stay safe. I will see you next week, and of course, email or do anything else in terms of private comment if you have any questions, concerns like that. I'll make sure to get right back to you.